I think you already heard my name is Suoheimo. I'm from Finland, University of Lapland, and I want to thank Taltek and Anu Leppiman for inviting me here. I think Anu has been doing wonderful work as a pioneer in our field in service design, and happy to be here with you all. And hope we can have some nice discussions afterwards. Also, nice to meet you all. So how many of you are familiar with the term of wicked problems? Is there anyone that works in this field? Wicked problems. Are you familiar with the term? Okay, it might be that you are working with them, but you just don't know yet. I think so. You'll probably notice it today. So I'm going to present you a little bit about my doctoral research, and I'm interested in the wicked problems. So wicked problems are problems that you are not able to solve. So, for example, you know how to make a cup of coffee, but you don't know how to tame poverty. You don't know how to fight against the war on terror or problems as homeless people. And I think there might be people that work with these issues here too. So what is the role of service design in this? So the relation and the role, they kind of go in hand. And what are the tools that you can use to try to tame these kind of problems that don't have any solutions? And what are the, and then in my research, I want to also concentrate on these tools, and I concentrate more on the Mess mapping tool to create shared understanding, and I use 3 case studies to do this, and I'm going to present them to you. So what is the problem? As I told you, you know how simplistic things like tie your shoelaces, a small problem, but then there are problems that you're just not able to explain them. The problems like pollution, climate change, politics, or things like responsible packaging, refugees integration, or autonomous driving, things that grow in more complexity. And there were these 2 theorists in the 70s that they coined the term wicked problem, because there was a simplistic way thinking that maybe engineering can solve the problems of the world. But I think we haven't done it yet. There are still problems that they are just ill-defined and wicked. They are there. And they gave us very nice 10 definitions what makes a wicked problem. So it's like the wicked problem attack horror on beyond the terror. So you cannot define what the problem is, and sometimes it's very exhaustive to work with them because you're just not able to say what it is. It is just so multidimensional thing. And they don't have a stopping rule. You cannot say, oh, now we solution this. Now we don't have any poor people in this world. It is just that you can kind of tame them but not solution them. And you can always improve the solution for it. And the solutions, they are not true or false, but they are good or bad. So you can make better choices. And there is no ultimate test of a solution to a wicked problem. And it goes with in hand that every solution to a wicked problem is a one-shot operation. One example I could use here that in Brazil, I also have a Brazilian citizenship. I lived there more than 13 years. So they used, it's very, you could see, the thing is a simplistic thing. You build a road connecting the one state to like cross the state. But you didn't realize that there are indigenous people still living in the forest and that you cut their living in behalf. Families were separated, they got diseases, so it was kind of an extinction of a population. So you think you might be doing something simplest, but it can have severe consequences. And this is what you handle with the wicked problems. You try to create a solution, but there are often spin-off problems that you might be creating together. And normally, a wicked problem is a symptom of another very wicked problem. And still, like, it's interesting that Riddle and Weber, they think that there are not very enumerably or exhaustively describable set of potential solutions. There are other theorists who think that there are many. But every wicked problem is unique. Interestingly, I come from Finland, and I read our report, Brand report, and they declared that we have solved the wicked problem of education. And it made me think like, well, perhaps in Finland, but if you go to Brazil or any third world country, it's not that simple. Maybe the things that we have done, you're just not able to implement them the same way in another country that we do. And it's very hard also to be a wicked problem solver. So I gained a lot of understanding of people that are doing politics, because they're just doomed often what way they're going to make their decisions, because either way are going to affect people's lives. And it is very interesting because it's also multi-stakeholder management. You have a many set of people coming together and discuss the problem, and who you choose to be your stakeholder is the way you define what the problem is, and that way what the solution could be. And it's very hard to talk because I got feedback from my scientific articles that I use the word solution even though there are no solutions, but there are no better word, so I'm using this term. So they're multidimensional, constantly evolving. It's this like a messy thing together. They have multiple causes and multiple symptoms. And I felt like when I started working with it, that it's like this box that everybody thinks they have the right answer. Oh, it is rounded, I have the solution. But actually the thing is that nobody has the right puzzle to put in, the missing piece. And I like very much of this definition from Head and Alford. And you can see there it's like put it in two categories. You have the diversity and complexity. So they become very simple when you know what the problem is and what's the solution, like tying the shoelaces. But then you don't know either one of the things, it becomes more complicated. And when you don't know neither of them, neither the solution, neither what the problem is, the complexity arises. The same thing is with the diversity on the other side. So you have a single party with one opinion, and they share the same opinion and the goals. But when you have multiple parties with conflicting values and interests, then it comes super wicked. So the super wicked problem here in the end, the 5 stage, we could say it's the climate change. Then we have wicked problems like the poverty, or I could even say that even one of the professors that coined the term wicked problems, he was from city planning. So city planning issues, they might be wicked. People that work with architecture also, or many managerial teams can be very wicked. And then we have the complex problems. I could say like, well, what could I say? Ergonomics, for example. And then we have the simple problems. How do I design a chair, for example? Service design. You have been hearing of this a lot today. And I like the Stickdorn's principles, the pillars that service design is built on. It's about user-centeredness, co-creativeness, sequencing. We use a lot of blueprints and service journeys to show what is happening on a service. And we are evidencing, we use a lot of images to explain to stakeholders what is happening. And it is holistic. And here we can see that there are many good connections to wicked problems. And I think, and my idea and my motivation of the thesis is to show in our field that often we might be dealing with wicked problems without realizing it, because they are holistic and they are about co-creativeness. And I made a systematic literature review together with 2 researchers, and we analyzed 55 articles of design journals. And none of these articles, even though it was capable to find the 2 words, wicked problem and service design, none of them was in the keywords, but it was in the texts. And sometimes it was confusing because they were referring to Buchanan's article only in the references, but they didn't talk about wicked problems. So I see that there is kind of a research gap and maybe sometimes even a blind spot in our field. So as Stigdorn said, so I could see also here, and the research that I found here is that we are the facilitators of the process through collaboration, participatory design, and co-design, what service design does. And we create innovations. We are agents of change. And we deal with political level problems. And we also have the visualization skills to create shared understanding. And I thought it is interesting, like Anu has been talking about prototyping. This is a very important aspect too. I made a new research about and published it in 2 journals. What are the tools that you can use to tackle the wicked problems as they are so complicated? And I found 4, only 4. There are tools that can be used for many categories of problems, but these are the ones that you can use solely for wicked problems. And I'm going to tell you more about mess mapping, so I'm not going to go deeper to it. But the second is related to mess mapping. It's about resolution mapping, and you use them kind of together. The dialogue mapping is a very curious and interesting tool. It starts with the idea that you have a theme that you start to debate and discuss about. And then you start visually open what is happening in the conversation. It is a way of democratizing that people can say and hear everybody's opinion, because how many of you have had experience that somebody's dominating the discussion in a meeting? I think we all have experienced that. So you note down what everybody is saying, and you can just politely say, it's been said already, it's here, it has been noted. And then you can get the voices of the others also in the group and get their voices heard. So I think it's a very clever tool. And I think mess mapping also contains some characteristics of dialogue mapping. There's also a Swedish researcher, Richie, that he has used computers and IT to find clever solutions through general morphological analysis. I think they could maybe benefit a little bit more visualization, but they try to use computers to get the most beneficial solution for a wicked problem. And it can be used in the stage of understanding or creating the solution of the problem. And it's interesting that all the strategies for these four tools is collaborative. They're all built in collaboration with the people and the stakeholders. And I was analyzing in the article if you could use authoritarian or competitive, but the collaboration strategy is going beyond. And it might be harmful, as Robert has written, to use the authoritarian or competitive strategies in wicked problems, because it's about uniting, doing things together. So mess mapping has been developed by Professor Horn in Stanford University. And here you can see some mess maps. One is about vortex of mental illness, how the system works for a person that has mental problems. Or other one is about mental health services, dynamics and dilemmas. How does the mental health service work all together? So we have the theme in the middle. It looks a little bit like a mind map, but you have 20 mind maps in one. And we use this tool in a project that was EU-funded, and it's trying to tackle the problem of Finnish middle-aged men in Lapland and their problem of being unemployed, and they often have problems with alcoholism. And we use this tool with 3 municipalities that are involved in the project to make the initial discussion and debate what is happening. So we had social workers, we have people from the health services, and other related people come together to discuss about the problem. It was several workshops together, and we had the first kick-off meeting trying to define what are the boxes we try to start mapping. I made a suggestion, I listened to the social workers, and it was interesting because we are kind of all women. We don't have many men working in the social field. That's a bit of a problem because we work with the men. And it was actually very hard to get any focus group guy to be part of this. It should be, service design is about taking the user in the middle, but this focus group is so difficult. So it's very hard to say like, hey, come here, tell about you of being unemployed and this kind of thing. It's not very, how can I say, a pleasant situation to any. So it was very hard. We even tried if we could find a person that has overcome the situation and come and share also about it. But on the other hand, I can see that even though we were not able to integrate them in this phase, so the social workers, they've been working decades with these focus groups. And they also have a very nice, let's say, insights. And I think everybody knows someone that suffers from alcoholism. So they can see a little bit from the side, but not from the inside, at least. And an interesting thing is that we have here many of these fields and how they connect to each other. So we made, in the last meeting, we made connections, how one field relates to another one. And interestingly, everything went to the self-esteem and motivation. It's like the box in the middle. And then we put in red the boxes or the fields that they feel that the social workers can make some influence on. And then there are in blue boxes that they felt that they are just unable to make things because they've been already made political decisions. For example, no longer the Finnish small towns, they don't have police any longer there. They're in the bigger cities. And they would take 1 hour just to ride in a smaller city. So it's hard to make collaboration with this stakeholder group because they're just far away. And so there are many issues related to this. And we still had to point out the pain points, what they could start working with, and a great strategy from this point of view. I also work in another project that we will start doing this summer, and we are now putting the consortia together. There are many projects in Lapland that we are starting to do cross-border mobility. And we are going to try to involve those people from Sweden. No, not Sweden is not part of this project, but Norway, Finland and Russia. So we can get the people together to start talking about mobility. And we have this initial map that I created now in the Drive document. So we can, through Skype meetings, meet and start dialoguing about the issue. We used post-it notes with the Voitto project because we were all present, but this we are going to do virtually, most of the meetings. And I also use this same map now. Actually, this map is another one that we are analyzing, a project that already happened in South Africa and the youth unemployment of the Sun youth there. And we are 3 researchers, also different places from Helsinki, Rovaniemi and Leeds from UK, and we are having Skype meetings and through mobility reports we are reading now what has happened, what has been the impact, what are still the pain points we haven't influenced in the project yet, what can be the future research and the future project we should develop further. And so it's a plenty of workshops. So for example, I've been designing and planning maybe have 8 for the mobility, and it's about the same amount that we can have and share the opinions, like maybe make 1 or 2 boxes in each meeting, and then in the final meeting we discuss, open the whole map. Not everybody needs to be involved in each workshop, so that's why it's important that the final workshop you have everybody together. And it's very interesting to identify the stakeholders at the first stage, because it also influences if you get impact in the end. Do you have enough influent people in the table? And it is all about the process that we use in service design and design field itself. Here I took the double diamond, which is very similar to design thinking. So we start with the discovering phase, with the problem, trying to understand what is the problem. And here the tool Mess Mapping is handy for the wicked problems. You can use a mind map maybe to a simple problem. And then you start to defining, closing, and trying to define make a design brief. That is a very complicated issue for the wicked problems. But then you start to open again. Try to make potential solutions, prototype ideas, and then close to a solution. And it doesn't stop there, I'm sorry. You start over again, the process over and over again. And if you think about mobility, how many decades and centuries we've been struggling with mobility, making it better. So you can always make it better. So we just come to one stage and then continue. This tool has also disadvantages and advantages. It is not easy, as I said, to get the relevant people on the table and discuss about it. There are a lot of power relations between the participants. Some might feel that they're not able to open up because their boss or someone superior is there. So it's a bit difficult and tricky that people feel also comfortable enough to talk. And it's a challenge to commit the participants, and it takes a lot of time and effort. And as like one researcher in Wicked Problems has said, I think it's very clever that it's sometimes very good to be undecided of some things. You don't have just this, boom, solution for it. And the benefits is what I see, that it enables dialogue between the participants and stakeholders. You create shared holistic understanding. You see the big picture, but you can also scale inside the map, zoom in and out. You can see the dynamics of the power problem relations. You have the stakeholder mapping inside, and people, they can see like, oh, like one municipality at the Voito project saw that, we don't work with the healthcare sector as we should. So this is something we need to improve. So you also map the pain points, what is happening. You can also help to make the commitment and see the importance that you have in the problem and create the shared strategy, because then you have the common, at least some point of view, common view of the problem. Oh, thank you.